Most players think they can build and shoot their way to champion. Like if they just grind more creative, more maps, hop into more aim trainers, and crank harder than the guy next to them, they'll rank up. And don't get me wrong, mechanics matter. But if you're hovering in, platinum or diamond and you've been there for weeks, maybe even months, it's not your aim that's holding you back. It's your brain. See, Fortnite's rank system doesn't just reward highlight clips and fast edits, it rewards decisions. And hard truth is, most players don't lose because they're outgunned, they just lose because they're outplayed. And they don't realize they're rotating into dead zones. They pick bad fights at bad times. They waste mats early. They tunnel vision on fights instead of positioning. And most importantly, they don't review any of it. Think about this. You've probably practiced your crosshair placement, right? Or your triple edits. But when's the last time you watched one of your deaths and said, okay, what decision actually lost this match? You see, most people never do that. They just queue again, and that's why they're stuck. Let me give you an example. You're in third zone, you've got 2 kills, and you see a solo boxed up 20 meters away, and you've got decent mats, maybe 2 floppers, and you think free kill easy. So you W key them, you get the elimination, but you trade health and you burn 400 mats. A minute later, zone pulls across the map. Now you're scuffed, you're stuck rotating late, and you get held on edge by a team with height. Game over. That's a bad fight. And it's not because you lost it, you didn't, but it's because it was unnecessary, because you didn't think ahead. And that's the difference between diamond players and champion players. Champion players don't just win fights, they know when to take them. They ask, does this move help me win the game, or is it just for my ego? And here's the problem. Fortnite gives you so many chances to make tiny decisions like that, and every single one can be the difference between a top 5 and dying in 18th. But you're not taught to think about them. You're taught to hit Kovacs, run 1v1 realistics, and just get better aim. Mechanics are just the bait, whereas the real grind is decision making. Let's even go deeper. Placement points scale hard in the higher ranks. The difference between 20th and 5th isn't just a few points, it's sometimes the difference between ranking up or staying stuck. So if you're playing every single game like a deathmatch, you're never going to get the consistency that champion players rely on. They play for the long game, they take control of zones early and they avoid pointless risks. And when they do fight, it's on their terms, when they have height, when they've scouted the opponent, or when they just need to refresh. But let's say you do play smart, you avoid the bad fights, you rotate early, you use cover, you still might be stuck. Why? Because most players don't even know what they're doing wrong. You're making decisions, sure, but you're not reviewing them. You're not tracking patterns in your own play, and you're definitely not identifying which habits keep getting you killed. And until you do, you'll stay stuck where you are. So the question isn't, how do I get better aim? It's what's actually losing me games. And most of the time, in my experience, it's not one big mistake. It's a bunch of small ones you don't even notice. Bad timing, bad rotations, bad discipline, stuff that doesn't even feel like a mistake until it's too late. And that's why champ feels so far away. Not because it's out of reach mechanically, but because the game doesn't punish your bad habits hard enough until you get close to it. You can skate by, in gold or low diamond doing the same thing every match, but once you start hitting real lobbies, everything changes. You're not just fighting worse players with worse aim, you're fighting people who actually think ahead, people who control zones, who push panic moves and dumb rotates. You're in a different game now. And if you don't learn to play that version of Fortnite, the one built around decisions, you'll stay hard stuck no matter how clean your mechanics are. And most players think that they're self-aware. They think that they understand what's going wrong in their matches, but they don't. Not really. They'll say stuff like, I just need to hit more shots, or I always get third-partied, or I shouldn't have pushed that guy. But those are just surface level excuses, vague, recycled explanations that don't actually help you fix anything. The real issue is that you're not analyzing your games in detail. You're not identifying patterns, and without seeing patterns in your own gameplay, you're stuck guessing, which is exactly why your improvement is random and slow. Let me break this down. Let's say you die in 17th place. Right after, rotating late through a choke point, you remember the fight, maybe the guy who held you, but you don't rewind far enough to realize you made 3 key mistakes before you even saw that player. You delayed your rotate because you were farming a little too long. You didn't scout the zone. You didn't take dead side when you had the chance. So now you're late, you're panicking, you're boxed up on edge, and you got lasered rotating in. But instead of learning from that, you just think, I got unlucky. And this is what keeps players like you hard stuck. They don't trace their deaths back to the first mistake, and they don't know how to spot what's actually caused that chain reaction. They just look at the moment they died and call it unlucky, when really it was inevitable the second they made a bad decision 60 seconds earlier. Champion players don't think like that. They break down their matches like detectives. Every decision, every rotate, every engagement gets reviewed, and they ask, was this rotate early or late? Was I unaware of other players around me? Did I position myself for storm surge or zone advantage? Did I take a fight I didn't need to? And they don't just do this once. They do it every game, because one game doesn't show the whole picture. But 10 games reviewed properly will show you exactly why you're stuck. Now, here's the crazy part. Most of the mistakes keeping you in diamond or lower aren't mechanical. They're oftentimes mental. They're decisions. You're doing things without thinking about them. Taking fights just because someone's nearby, building too high in mid game without actually scouting, holding bad angles, ignoring how much materials you have. These aren't aim problems. They're just discipline problems. And the worst part is, you probably think you're playing fine. You might even feel like you're playing better than your opponents and still losing. That's the trap, because you're not looking at the game through the right lens. You're reacting, not evaluating. You're thinking in the moment, but never after. And even worse, most people don't even know what to look for in a VOD. They watch themselves play and just skip around until they die. And that's not review, that's just reliving a loss. Here's how real review works. You watch from the start. You track your mats, your decisions, your awareness, and even your rotations. You pause the video before a fight and ask, should I even take this? What's my plan? You take notes, real ones, about what led to success and what led to failure. And if you're not willing to do that, to treat the game like a skill that requires analysis, not just muscle memory, then you're just gonna stay exactly where you are. And you might improve mechanically, you might win a few more fights, but your ranked progress will stay inconsistent, because you're not addressing the cause of your losses, only the symptoms. And this is what separates grinders who plateau from players who break through. Everyone cues games. Everyone watches YouTube tips like this one, but the ones who rank up are the ones who treat every match like a lesson, like a system they can reverse engineer. So if you are serious about reaching champion, it's not about grinding more. It's about being smarter with the games you've already been playing. It's about collecting information from your losses and using it to adjust your approach. Every decision matters, and until you review them with that level of detail, you're flying blind. If you've made it this far, you probably already know, grinding mechanics alone won't get you to champion. Reviewing your gameplay, fixing habits, that's where the real climb starts. But what does it actually look like to play a champion level Fortnite player? It's not just about reacting faster, it's about being ahead of the entire game. For instance, champion players don't just build better, they think better. They understand timing better. They understand tempo better. They recognize when a fight is a waste of time, when they're about to get third-partied, when they're not in zone control, and when it's better to just disengage. That's something that most lower-ranked players never even consider. A diamond player might push a fight because, I don't know, they're confident in their aim. A champion player doesn't care how confident they feel, they care whether that fight fits the game plan. They know every fight costs mats, cooldowns, and time, and they treat those things like resources, not infinite tools. Champion players plan, and they're already thinking about fourth zone, while everyone else is just farming brick. They're not rotating, they're pre-rotating. They know where dead side is, they scout elevation, they hold angles with purpose, and they don't just hold height. They know why they're holding it. They understand control of space, control of information, control of the flow of the match, and most importantly, they stay really calm, and not just during the fights, but in transitional periods too, when the game is chaotic, when zone pulls across a hill, when builds are getting chopped out or a storm surge hits. Lower ranked players will panic, whereas champion players will adapt. Now, here's the hard truth. Most players could play like this, but they don't know how. Not because they aren't capable, but because no one's ever shown them what to look for. Here's how to track decisions, how to control tempo, how to manage resources across an entire match. You probably don't need more mechanics. You need structure, accountability, a way to identify your real weaknesses, build awareness, and fix the actual problems holding you back. That's exactly what we do at Rank Rise Academy. We help players like you reach champion and beyond by giving them more than just tips. We give you a structure, we give you feedback, and we give you a proven framework to build high-level habits that last, and you're not just left to figure it out all alone. We show you exactly how to review your own gameplay, how to rotate with purpose, and how to win fights without burning all of your mats, and how to stop autopiloting ranked. Inside the program, we've got coaches who work with players daily, breaking down their matches, assigning drills, giving feedback that's actually specific to your playstyle and not just some cookie cutter generic YouTube tip or recycled advice. Real coaching from people who know what it takes. And no, I won't be coaching you personally. That's not how this works. We've built a full system with experienced coaches who are focused on one thing, helping you rank up. Not next season, not next year, now. So if you're tired of guessing what's going wrong, if you want a clear step-by-step way to reach champion and finally stop wasting time on things that just don't work, then check the link in the description and join our Discord. Apply to Rank Rise Academy, get coached, and stop being stuck, because if you were going to figure it out alone, you already would have.